The heating, hello and welcome to something slightly different. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, until now we've been doing nothing but Star Wars reviews, and a very specific part of Star Wars at that. But I've mentioned in a couple of my previous videos that in addition to Star Wars, I am actually an enormous Pokemon fan. I've literally been a fan since it came out in the UK in the late 90s. I've played all the main games, in most cases both or all three versions. Played most of the side games. I've collected the toys since I was a young child. Of course, then I played with them rather than just collected them. Yeah, I'm a massive, massive fan. And I mentioned in my requests video that I had with me a number of those toy lines spanning all the generations, from, figures to plushes and miscellaneous. And one of those lines I mentioned was the ChibiPokeHouse line that I would love to review for people if that's something that you would be interested in. Now, I've had a number of people, both on YouTube and off of it, telling me that they'd actually like to see this line be reviewed. So I thought today that we'd take a look at my favourite in the ChibiPokeHouse line, and if this video goes down well, I'll do all of them. If that's the case, it's going to be an absolutely massive series of videos. Compared to other toy lines, the ChibiPokeHouse line is probably not the biggest, but in and of itself, I think it's massive. There are so many different little sets. The majority of them are these little clamshell style sets, very reminiscent of the old Polly Pocket toys, but there are some larger sets that were released next to them, which drew inspiration from the some of the earlier films and a few scenes in the anime. So, as I said, today we're going to take a look at my favourite set in the series. Now, before we go on to the review, I just want to give a quick history and description of the ChibiPokeHouse line. This had a very limited release in the Western world. They were primarily released in Japan. I'm not 100% sure of the situation in Japan. I'm not sure if you could only buy them at, I think what was then Pokemon Center Japan only, or if you could buy them in normal toy shops or whatnot, but in the Western world at least, they had their primary release on the former Pokemon Center website. Now, in its heyday, this website sold absolutely everything and anything Pokemon. It had exclusives, it had toys that you could buy in the shop, it had everything. And this is actually where the majority of people will actually recognise these sets from, myself included. I spent countless hours as a child looking at the sets online and just wishing I could have them. I'm very pleased to say I've been able to make that dream come true. I've got all but 2 of the sets in the entire series, so once I actually find those, I've got a complete set. Very proud of that. But yes, the site actually went down in 2008, I believe. Pokemon fans will be familiar with this. I'm not sure why it closed down, however, I do know that it actually opened up again, I believe 2 or 3 years ago, I think coinciding with the release of Gen 6. The current Pokemon Center website, I don't think it's half as good as the old one. It has, I think, a rather limited selection of items for sale. The most interesting being the exclusive plushes, which are absolute works of art. I've got a few with me and I'll do those in a later video. But yes, the old site was a Pokemon child's absolute heaven. And again, that's where they released the majority of these sets, in that all of the, almost all of the big sets, I believe, were released there, and most of the smaller sets. I once thought they had the entire set online, but once I actually started researching it later, sort of into life, and finding more and more of these sets, again, I realised that the line was actually quite a lot bigger than I had previously thought. As for actually appearing in shops, I'm not sure about in America, but I know that in Europe, particularly the UK, and in Israel, which actually does get a lot of stuff from actually both Europe and Japan, they did release a few of the smaller clamshell style sets next to the standard figures and plushes. They came in the standard packaging, which is different to the Japanese packaging in that it's quite a bit more sort of homogeneous and sort of keeping with the line. Other than that, the sets were exactly the same. As I say, the only difference between the European Western release and the Japanese release was the packaging and a sticker on the front of the clamshell style sets, which in Europe was just the Pokemon Splash logo. In Japan, it was, you know, very cute little artwork. It had pictures, I think, of the Pokemon included in the set. It was just a lot more pleasing to the eye, I think. But as I say, I think in Europe, at least, they were trying to make it match the rest of the line. Now, this set that I'm about to show you was one of the larger sets that had its release in the Western world on PokemonCenter.com and possibly in the former Pokemon Center in New York City. And here we go. Pokemon fans may recognise this as being based on the forest that was in the Pikachu mini-movie for Pokemon the Movie 2000, or Revelation Lugia. On PokemonCenter.com, in the Western release, this was called the whole line in the Western release went from ChibiPokeHouse to just Pokemon House. Which makes sense, although it did actually make finding this set a bit of an issue later on. This actually isn't my original set. I got my original set when I was living in Israel. It was easily one of my favourite things ever. I had so much fun playing with this as a child. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the move. I had 3 ChibiPokeHouse sets in Israel, and when we moved from Israel, I unfortunately only had 1. So this is one I bought, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago to replace it in my collection. Just do a quick go around of the set. As I say, in the Western world, these were released under the title Pokemon House, whereas in Japan they were under the line ChibiPokeHouse. I'm not sure which line is more recognised sort of online and in the Pokemon communities. I tend to use ChibiPokeHouse, but I have seen Pokemon House also used. This was the Type D set. There were, I believe in the original sort of series of them, there were 5, obviously Type A, B, C, D and E. I have all of those, I believe. And again, I will review those if this video goes down well. As you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous set. As I say, it's always been my favourite. I don't play with it anymore, obviously, I just display it. But I'm going to be honest, just looking at it makes me happy. I love how bright the colours are. I love the little paint details. Have a close-up look here at the flowers. Nice little painted little flowers. Detail on the grass. Some shading on the waterfall. Of course, shading in the water spout in the trunk. And, of course, up here was my favourite bit as a child. You could open up the top of the tree, and in the film they had a scene where some Blossom came and danced for Pikachu and company, and whoops, let's see if I can actually get that in shot, might have to move it down slightly. They have recreated that very cutely with decals and little stumps at the top of the tree. So the biggest thing about these sets was that they had these wonderful little play features on them. Now I'm just going to demonstrate them. Before I go on though, however, I will go over the figures that you actually got with the set. With the larger sets, you got anywhere from about 5 to 7, 8, I think maybe even 9 Pokemon figures. With the smaller sets, you just got 2, or in the case of the Legendary Bird sets, you just got 1. I'm not actually going to take these out of the capsule. These are actually the figures that came with my original set. When I bought this new one, it didn't come with any figures. I think it just came with the box, and it had a playmat, which I've placed somewhere. Cannot find it for the life of me. I'll tell you what I will do though. I will put a link in the description to this video. I have a ChibiPokeHouse website that I've been trying to sort of build together. Not too many people in the Pokemon community actually know too much about these sets. So when I started actually building my collection, I wanted to do a bit like with my Neimoidian collection. I wanted to do a sort of an archive and a series of photo reviews so people could actually have a close look at these sets, since they're so rare and hard to find. And I'll put a link to that in case you actually want to have, a close look at some of the details and see the playmat and whatnot. I doubt my regular Star Wars audience is going to take much interest in this, but any Pokemon fans out there, please, by all means, feel free to have a look and satisfy any curiosity you may have. So, as I say, it comes with a number of figures. I put these in this little Gashapon capsule when I was actually still living in Israel. They have not come out since, and I know it's very silly, but I'm actually a bit reluctant to take them out now. They've been in there for so long that, I don't know, it would feel almost wrong to me. But I will go over the figures that you do get with it. You get Marill, Togepi, Blossom, Elekid, Ladybug, Pikachu, and a single Execute. Now, those that remember the film, and why wouldn't you, it was a staple of our childhood, remember that there was actually a missing Execute in the film, and Togepi was sort of the replacement at the time. I'm actually going to demonstrate this with with a Pikachu from another set that I have. I can't remember who this one goes to. I think it's the Type B, which is the Crystal House from the third Pokemon film. As I say, if this goes well, I'll review that at a later date. But one of the features of this set was that you could put the Execute at the top of the waterfall, beg your pardon. You could move Gyarados up. It would cause this little swarm of Ladybug to pop up, and it would make either Togepi or the Execute roll down and into the Execute nest. Again, referencing the whole sort of underlying theme of rescuing Togepi from the during the film. Another feature was by pushing down. Hang on, put Pikachu there, or we'll just have him fall on the floor. Come on, you. If you press the rock, you actually get a bit of a hidey hole there. I don't believe this actually no, hold on. No, I tell a lie. I was going to say I don't think this actually worked when I first got the set, but they actually re-released another playset based upon the secret bases from the Hoenn region using this exact model. So they basically released two playsets like this, almost exactly the same, but with different colours and decorations and whatnot, and I'll do that at a later date as well, if this goes well. I actually had to open up that set at the bottom and I think reattach a few things in order to get the hidey hole to work. Unfortunately, as you can see, it has, I think you can see on the camera, it has discoloured a bit compared to the surrounding grass. These sets, let me just check the year, if it says, 1999, so this set is 17 years old. Have I got that right? 17 years old? Yeah, I think I have. This set is as old as Star Wars Episode 1, put it that way. Which, given the shape that it's in and the overall sort of design of it, it doesn't seem like it could possibly be that old in my opinion, and yet it is. So obviously you are going to get some colouring, discolouring, whatever. Another feature over here was, it has never worked well. It tends to send my Pokemon flying, but a sort of a bouncy leaf. I don't know why this was ever supposed to work. As I said, I have almost lost countless figures trying that when I was a child. Next to that is a small leaf, which functions as a wheel, causing a rapid in the water. I like to keep it over the apple because I'm OCD like that. Another hidey hole, one that I've found often causes Pokemon figures to get stuck. Very nearly happened a few times on my old set from Israel. Then, of course, probably one of my favourite features of this is... It worked a lot better when I had smaller hands, but... Come on. This is not made for adults. Was that you could put... I mean, technically Blossom is supposed to be on here. Has a wider base, so it's actually meant to sort of stay on there without falling apart, but... You could use the water spout as a sort of a lift. So... doesn't work quite as well as it used to. It's a bit sort of jerky, but as you can see, the water spout has gone straight up, and come on. Oh, he's shy. Come on, you. As you can see, it's meant for smaller hands, but you can send one of your figures up to, I don't know, put on a show. Murder your audience, whatever you do with Pokemon these days. And then finally, I believe, was on the outside of the tree are these little sort of balconies, parapets, whatever you want to call them, that you can stick your Pokemon figures on. As I said, as a young child, this brought me so much fun. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I loved playing with this growing up. Obviously, it has lost that appeal now that I'm an adult, but nevertheless, I still think it's an absolutely, you know, beautiful little set. It's got so many fun features. It's got adorable, detailed decals. It's got a great little area. Unfortunately, you can't actually use it to hide any figures because it's sort of solid all the way through. I think unless you put it sort of straight back behind here. So it's not so great for storage. There are actually a number, in fact, I think actually when you get right down to it, most of the sets are very modular and self-contained in that you can carry both the set and the figures you get with the set sort of, you know, within itself. The larger sets, obviously not so much. These are not meant to be travelled with and not meant to contain anything that they come with. So that is a bit of a drawback. But, as I say, it's a beautiful set. It's a lot sturdier than it looks. I remember I travelled, when I was a young child, I travelled with my old one a couple of times. It held up in the suitcase, didn't snap, didn't break, so it is well put together. It's sturdy. I mean, it's built to withstand young children, put it that way. So I would usually at this point say, if you want to find this, you know, for yourself or for your child, you know, do X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, however, these are so incredibly difficult to find. I think they're almost more of a collector's item at this point rather than a toy, which is a real shame because Pokemon has really moved away from these wonderful little play sets to just, you know, standard figures. And certainly during the Sinnoh line, I think when Jakks Pacific had a license, I'm not sure if they still have that license anymore, they did these sort of larger, very basic, very gaudy, in my opinion, play sets made for the standard figures, and in my opinion, they just don't even hold a candle to this. So, if you know what, if you're a parent who has a child who is seriously interested in Pokemon, it might actually be worth investing, or, you know, trying to find one of these. In order to do so, you can find them on eBay, but they are very, very, very rare. I have seen maybe 2 or 3 show up in the last 7 years. Put it this way, I have seen as many of these show up on eBay since I started collecting properly, that I've seen as many of these as I've seen holographic Newt Gunray figures. They are just that difficult to find in the West. On Japanese websites, however, they are actually considerably easier, or at least they were considerably easier when I was collecting. I'm going to link my website below, my ChibiPokeHouse website, which has a number of resources for people who are looking to collect these, including a number of Japanese search terms and some advice on what to look for and what you need to do in order to get these. I will say that if you are ordering from a Japanese website, unless you have a friend in Japan who is willing to shoulder some of the work for you, you will have to sign up for something that's called a deputy service. And if you're not familiar with what they do, a deputy service is basically someone who will either buy or bid on something that's on a Japanese website. And normally these Japanese websites actually only sell, to people in Japan. The deputy service will bid on or buy what you want. They'll have it shipped to their depot. You pay them for the item plus a small commission fee. The commission fee is usually, depending on what you buy, almost nothing. I think for me, when I bought this, no, actually I didn't buy this. I think actually I'll tell you what, I think someone actually, if I remember correctly, someone bought this for me on my behalf and I just paid them back. But for some of the other sets that for some of the other sets that I've bought, I think the commission fee has it's never been more than about 500 yen, which is about $5. It's next to nothing. It's negligible. And it's absolutely worth it to get one of these sets. Once you've paid them, they will then ship the item directly to you. It does add more cost, and shipping from Japan can sometimes be a bit outrageous depending on what you're shipping. At the same time, though, I think I shouldn't say outrageous. The shipping is actually usually what you would expect for what you're buying. It's, the way I see it, if you bought this item in America and sent it to Europe, it would probably be more than if you bought it from Japan and sent it to America or Europe. So, but at the end of the day, it does add a bit of extra expense, but it is worth it, to find and get what you want. And that's just not exclusive to Pokemon items. Once you've got a deputy service, you can literally buy as much as you want using them. And, once you've paid the fees, they'll ship it on to you, no problem. I've even heard of people actually getting little, freebies put in their packages when they've bought enough. One post I remember actually it was a collector who collected the Pokemon Cyndaquil. They had a large package come from their deputy service, which had a little tiny Cyndaquil plush in it that they had actually never seen before. So it was a brand new addition to their collection that they got completely for free just for being good customers. I've never had any problem with deputy services. They're very polite. They're very helpful. I can recommend a few. Selga is one. Goody Japan is another. Trying to think of one more that I've used. Shopping Mall Japan is a third one. Literally, if you just Google, deputy service Japan, you can easily find a number of them. Depending on, again, how much you're willing to sort of put towards a set like this. If you're looking to collect, I think this is, absolutely the set to have. If you're looking to give this to a child, I guess, depends on how happy you want them to be. But yes, I think, as I say, absolutely fantastic sets. My favourite in the series. I will happily do more if that's what people would like to see. I do apologise to my Star Wars viewers. There are certainly going to be plenty more Star Wars reviews coming, but as I said, I did want to trial one of these. There will be links below going back to both of my websites, both my Star Wars and my Pokemon websites, if you're interested in seeing anything else in my collection and even making a request on something you'd like to see me review that I haven't done yet. For now, though, I hope this has given you a bit of insight to the Pokemon Type D. It's a very rare set, it's a very beautiful set. If you can find one, I think you're probably one of the luckiest people on the planet. Otherwise, you know what? Don't give up. I searched for one of these for 4 years non-stop, and in the end I got one. They're common, I think relatively common on Japanese websites, and for the most part they're actually relatively cheap as well. So yeah, basically if you're looking for one, don't give up. It will turn up. For now though, let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in seeing any more in the line. I'd be happy to do them. It's going to be a long series, and I think it's going to be quite a lot of fun. For now though, thank you very much indeed for watching, and may the Force and Neimoidians and Pokemon be with you.